Vince Staples' self-titled album review. Let's chat about it. Hey guys, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning. Here to chat about the latest from Vince Staples, California-based MC, a guy who a few years back really reignited my passion and my fire for reviewing hip-hop, modern hip-hop that is. I mean, he came along during a time where I wasn't listening to much hip-hop and really knocked my socks off right off the bat with his very early EP, Hell Can Wait. This is a grisly, intense EP with so many great moments. Still to this day, burners like Screen Door and Fire go so hard. Not only that, but I don't think Limos gets enough credit as much as it does. Then we have his dark, gritty double album Summertime '06, one of my favorite albums the year that it dropped. This thing is still to this day so awesome. This instantly skyrocketed Vince Staples overnight to one of hip-hop's most notable modern acts, and it's really not that hard to see why either. It was pissed off, it was heavy, it definitely had bangers, but it also had emotional moments to it too, and I know that Vince was certainly, inspired by Joy Division for the cover, but I think he was inspired a whole lot deeper, because there's some pretty, almost gothic moments on that album. But if you think that Vince was a one-trick pony, think again. His follow-up album, Big Fish Theory, was even more exciting in my book. This had eclectic production, game-changing beats, fantastic features. I really loved this thing all around. And you know what? I also enjoyed his very short and sweet FM, even if it was on the more pop rap side of anything that Vince has touched recently. Now, I think the big elephant in the room on this very short album, despite it, outside of how short it is, this thing's 10 tracks, 22 minutes long. This is a very short and concise album from a guy that, had a double album as his full-length debut. But the big story here is just how minimal, how reserved, how quiet these new tracks are, at least instrumental and production-wise. It almost reminds me of, that Prima Donna EP that he put out, one that I was very critical of. It was one of my least favorite things that Vince ever did. I will say, leading up to this album, some of his singles worried me a little bit about this album. This is a path that I haven't seen Vince go down in a while. I was worried, and you know what? While this album is very minimal, very dark, very gloomy, I still think he's one of the most interesting MCs out there. I really wasn't that high on Are You With That at first. I thought it was kind of a subpar single, but it's actually one of the sharpest tracks here. It's grown on me a ton. The quiet, hazy, somber beat, as well as Vince's performance, which kind of doubles down on all of that, is actually pretty fascinating from him. This is very much the more mellow side of Vince Staples, at least as far as his energy goes. As far as his lyrics go, they pack just as much of a punch as they always have. It's what's gravitated towards me, towards his music, since day one. As a matter of fact, because this album has some more low-key beats and quieter production in parts, all the focus is on Vince Staples, and that is great because he is a masterful storyteller. Even his vocals on tracks like this just sound so bruised. Technically, this isn't exactly what I've come to expect from Vince Staples, but it's not that bad. As a matter of fact, it's really good. Just know that if this isn't your favorite style of Vince Staples, sit with it. Let it really unfold around you because it does grow on you. Sundown Town is also really good. I mean, these beats and the production, all from Kenny Beats on this album, are so warped, so odd. They seem to be haunting Vince, or maybe Vince seems to be haunting them. But one thing is for sure, Vince is very reserved, concentrated. Raps on this album are really sharp. It's also, this just might be me, but I'm getting very heavy Earl Sweatshirt, I don't like shit, I don't go outside vibes. It's that very gloomy, rainy day rap. Not only that, but lyric-wise, this sounds like the next logical leap for Vince. The very Twilight beats that this album has continue on The Shining. Like I said, Vince is a master storyteller. That is on point here. And you know what? Like I said, at first, listening to some of the singles, I wasn't that high on this sound, but listening to it over and over again, as I have for the last few days, honestly, it's pretty mesmerizing and hypnotizing. And yes, at the end of the day, I still think my personal cup of tea is Vince at his more fired up, experimental, maybe even weird. but this style has the focus directly on him, and it's actually a spectacle for completely different reasons. Taking Trips, on the other hand, is a much more whimsical sound. This is a very nocturnal album from start to finish. And like I said, if this isn't your style from Vince, I recommend giving it a few more listens. This album has a lot of replay value, and it's short. It's 10 tracks, 22 minutes. But even in the week that this album has been out, it's grown on me immensely. Now, I know I'm in the minority here. I'm sorry, sue me. I don't really like Law of Averages that much. Personally, I think it's my least favorite track here. I love his politically charged up lyrics. Vince is still an awesome lyricist here. But this beat and the production on this track, easily some of my least favorite on this whole album. If you're into this, enjoy it for me. This is a miss for me on this album. And I don't want to dwell on them too long because they're interludes, but like, we get tracks like The Apple and the Tree and Lakewood Mall, and I can't be the only one that thinks that back in the summertime 06 days, Vince had a way of even making his interludes really add to his storytelling, add to the album better than this. This is already a very minimal, very quiet album. You really didn't need these tracks. And personally, I don't think Lil Fade works here either. This track is, of all the tracks here, probably the biggest banger. So much so, it stands out like a sore thumb. I mean, I will say this, as far as Kenny beats go, the production here, the beat here, it is a welcome change of pace, and it woke me up. The issue is, at least my main issue is Vince is still in this very reserved space, this reserved, very kind of laid back frame of mind throughout this track. It just doesn't mix well. So, I mean, personally, for me, this isn't going to be my favorite Vince Staples project. I personally like him when he's at his more fired up and his weirder and more experimental. That's just me. But even saying that, Vince is still one of the most freshest and most interesting acts in hip-hop right now, and this album is certainly still viable. Take Me Home featuring Foshae, honestly, one of the best tracks here. It's breezy, it's jazzy. I wish we heard more of that. And Foshae's contributions on this chorus are some of the most memorable here. It's very refreshing to this minimal atmosphere without getting too far outside the box. I love a lot of the references thrown in, and once again, his verse is super focused, super concise. And as a finale, a great banger. This, to me, kind of sounds like where I figured I'd hear most of this album. Once again, I love this chilly beat. It just kind of seems to be haunting Vince here. And as far as a track that really, like, hits hard, maybe the best track here. So like I said, at the end of the day, I personally, am much more interested in Vince going down the more experimental path like he did on Big Fish Theory, or Vince going down the darker and more fired up path of Summertime 06. That's just me. Even, take away all of that, Vince is still one of the most captivating storytellers in modern hip-hop. His incredible lyricism over these minimal beats only emphasize his performances even more, and still, even though this isn't 100% where I like to hear Vince Staples, he's one of the freshest faces in hip-hop for a reason right now. Feeling a strong 7 on this album, but let me know what you guys think down below. If you like the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below if you would like me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, guys.